Right, this section is about debating. When I arrived at Menglait, I was allocated the responsibility for debating by my HOD, head of department. I didn't know at the time that debating was the worst job you could be given. I was not consulted about it. I was simply allocated it by the head of department, a fact which I resented at the time. Australians talk long and loud about democracy and participation and consultation, but as soon as this Aussie got the chance, she seemed to do what everyone else does in Brunei. She just dished the jobs out without consulting. Anyway, I hadn't a clue what was a debate. I was, after all, originally a science teacher. Anyway, after a few weeks, I had a meeting of those students interested in debating and found a huge amount of interest, surprisingly. About 25 senior students turned up. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I do remember that two noisy boys at the back were creating a disturbance the whole time through the meeting, and they annoyed me. It turned out that these boys were later to become the backbone of the debating team. But in the following year, apparently they were so unimpressed with me on that first day that they never came back for the rest of the year. Anyway, I set up a meeting for a future date and for the next few months of the year, as I had some very low key meetings, and I had some, very low key meetings with some very keen girls and one boy, all of very average speaking ability. Basically, all the arguments and speeches had to be written by me, at least in terms of framework and outline. This meant a lot of work for me. Nevertheless, I think we all enjoyed it. Then, one Saturday at noon, we received a fax from the Ministry of Education asking us to appear on the Monday at the inter-schools debating competition. Well, we hadn't even been told what the topics were. This was just the sort of thing I'd come to expect from the ministry. And of course, we couldn't go. We hadn't prepared anything. Anyway, the next year was a little bit different. After the ministry had the idea of brilliant idea of dumping the organization of these competitions into the laps of the schools. So the winning school one year would be asked to host the competition in the following year. So the following year, the two noisy boys who turned out, uh, they turned out to be the backbone of the debating team at Menglait in that second year. One of them was the infamous son of the director of schools, and the other was a boy who had one Bruneian parent and one English parent. So his English was very good. Both were quite arrogant, really, and opinionated. And actually, those are the qualities that are just needed to be a good debater. In the competition, we managed to beat the fancied girls team from Stipri and the junior team from Maktab Science, one of the top elite schools in the country. These two victories sent tremors through the debating world. How could lowly Menglait have managed this? Well, the answer was, in my opinion, that they had a damn good speaking coach. He was an Aussie with a very outgoing and engaging personality. The students loved him. I did the organization, helped prepare the speeches, and made sure that the practices happened. But he was the leader in the coaching area, and the students looked up to him. The third student member of the team had a Portuguese mother, and she was actually quite young and a junior, but she was very articulate. She also happened to be one of the boys' unofficial girlfriends, because, of course, couples were frowned upon in this Islamic culture. But this meant that where one went, the other followed, which helped a lot with attendance at the practices. We got to the quarterfinals against the strongly fancied St. George's private school. This event was to be televised, and everyone at Menglait was very excited about it. On the day, we easily won. Our arguments had been ably prepared by myself and another debating teacher, and the kids delivered them with enthusiasm and skill. St. George's, our opponents, were clearly aghast at the skill of our team and more or less rolled over and accepted their medicine. The only problem was the judges didn't see it that way at all. They awarded the debate to the fancied St. George's team, much to everyone's surprise, including the St. George's team themselves. To my surprise, our students were very sporting about the result, much more sporting than I was or my colleague. I admired the attitude of our students, but was livid with the judges. But I managed to control myself and said nothing. As a result of our performance in this competition, both our boys were chosen, the noisy boys, to represent Brunei in the international competition in Singapore. But disaster was to strike because one of our boys was part of a couple. The powers that be felt these would not be good representatives for Brunei, and the girl was pulled from the competition. Not the boy, of course. He got to go to Singapore. The women always got the blame. I was amazed at the equanimity with which the students handled this news. But I was livid yet again, and it wasn't the last time I would be furious in the debating area. There were always controversies. The following year, we won the competition with the help of a very promising Chinese Malay debater. She had been in my first form class and was now one of the top students academically in Menglait. However, her main strength, which was to stand her in good stead, was her character. She was tenacious, cooperative, cheerful, and had very good manners. In a future year, at another school as coach, I won the senior debating competition. We had an outstanding debater there who could write everyone else's speech as well as her own. But she was the only student I ever coached in Brunei who could write her own speech. Anyway, back to the Chinese Malay debater at Menglait. She was a wonderful student and went on to get a scholarship from Menglait to the International School of Brunei to do the International Baccalaureate curriculum. This scholarship was given by an unknown benefactor and was extremely generous. Not only did it include fees for the IB program, but it included fees and living expenses to any university in the world. She did very well, and she was offered also a small scholarship by Liverpool University to do bioengineering. But just before she sat the IB exams, she was stunned to be told that her scholarship had been withdrawn without any reason being offered by the sponsor. Well, not only did the scholarship cover the university fees, but it covered the fees to sit the IB exams themselves. The family were not well off and were unable to pay anything. Of course, because she was Chinese Malay, the politics was that the Malay sponsor had withdrawn the money. Very sad. So sad for a young person. But what was interesting to me was the way she handled this news. The first thing she did was to cover up the whole incident and lie about it. Oh, I didn't quite get the required grade, sir, she said. I got 33 instead of 34 points, she told me. This later turned out to be false. The Bruneian instinct appears in a top-down system to lie in order to cover up, to protect. So she was covering up even for the sponsor who had behaved shamefully towards her. Where is the logic in that? I thought. Oh, I'll be okay, sir. I just want to put it behind me, she said. I don't know whether she was being coached or not, but it was remarkable to me. Even more shameful was the behavior of the international school, which made her pay even the $1,000 for the IB exams. So instead of receiving the scholarship offered to Liverpool University and doing the International Baccalaureate, she had to work in town to earn the money over the next several months to try to pay the fees for the IB exams. This was very shabby and weak behavior by the international school. What was even more interesting to me was the change in attitude when I next met her a few months later. Yes, now she was bitter and more open about criticizing those involved, but only when it was too late. She ended up going to UBD, the University of Brunei Darussalam.